Welcome back to the channel and a new video on the BMW E46 3 litre that I picked up in the last video, and it was very cheap. We actually got it out for a test drive, pulled it together a little bit, done a few little jobs on it, but it actually quickly went downhill, I'm afraid, a little bit after that, because I decided I was going to do one more video on it and actually take it for a good run and an MOT just to go right through it. And I made it as far as, well, the Kingsbury Bridge, and I noticed that the temperature started getting quite high on it. It actually went over the halfway mark, and they do tend to just stick around the halfway mark. So I actually pulled over, I let it cool down for about 30 minutes. Now I turned round and I actually drove it back, and by the time I got back it was at 3/4. So I've actually let it cool down again, and then I'm going to show you guys what I found. Now, the top radiator hose is, it's quite difficult to see, but that is it there. So you can see it's coming out of the front cover of the engine now, out of the thermostat housing. Then it goes round and it actually goes into the radiator. But you can probably just about see there is a valve on the top of it. Do you know what's going to be easier? It's leaking, and I've actually got a new one that I got from Tyler. And he was coming down to the area a couple of days ago, and he run this down to me, so you can see that's how it goes on. And this sensor here is actually leaking all the way around it. I've topped it up with water and it's trickling out, and with air trickling out, with air getting in there and the water trickling out, it is quite wobbly. That's going to cause a bit of a concern, and I've got my fingers crossed that that is the issue. You know, now we have got that new easy bleed, haven't we, that goes on the airline. These are a bit of a nightmare to bleed up. There is literally a bleed nipple here on the top of the header tank. There's a bleed nipple down the back there. They're quite well known for being a bit of a pain to bleed up. So I am actually going to change that pipe over, get the vacuum bleed on it, and then again just going to refill it with water and see if that makes a difference and get it out for a little bit of a run. But I've got my fingers crossed it's nothing more serious. It would point that it's like that because of the leak, but I guess without trying that pipe on there and having a look, we're never going to know. Let's crack on with it. So I think some of you gathered in the last video, I've got a bit of a soft spot for these E46 BMWs. I just think they're timeless. They've always looked good, and I think they always will look good. Don't forget, this car is 20 years old, and look how nice it looks. I'll put a bit of air in the tyres there and a jump pack on it just to get it over in front of the workshop door so we can concentrate on getting that pipe off. It was a bit tricky to do, but I popped the clip out of a flat screwdriver, got a blunt bar, just tapped lightly around the edges of it and managed to get it off, and it fell on the floor there. Well, I managed to get the pipe off. It was a little bit fiddly, but I just used that flat bar in the end, just put it on the top and tapped it just round the edges there with a little tiny hammer. And then again the same down there at the bottom. There is the new one, there's the old one. They are exactly the same, but this sensor, you can see, is actually wobbly, and that's where it was leaking all around the edge of it. And that pipe actually looks quite badly damaged, so luckily we're replacing that. But there is obviously still plenty of water in the system. That's come out of that pipe, and there is even still water in the radiator. Of course, there's a little 13 at the bottom underneath there that you can undo, 13 or a flat, but this car has still got the under tray on it, so I'm going to need to get that under tray removed, and then we'll dump all of the water out of it, and then we can put that new pipe on and actually get this onto a vacuum bleed, and then refill the system. So I guess let's just continue on. Let's get that tray off, and that will show a lot more as well. I'll be able to get to things a lot better. So I'm afraid with anything like related underneath the car, like water related, the drain plugs are always on the bottom of the radiator, so you are up and down, up and down. So I jacked it up there, removed those drain plugs out, and then lowered it down so it completely emptied, and then you've got to jack it back up again to get those drain plugs back in. Well, that spiraled a little bit further than expected very quickly. As soon as I removed the under tray to get to the drain plugs basically underneath the radiator and underneath the header tank, I quickly established that yes, that pipe was leaking. The new one is on there. I'm going to get in there in a minute, clip this end up, that end's clipped up, and we're good to go. But I quite quickly established that where that under tray was on there was water running off the back of it, and I'm assuming that it's coming out of there, but it actually wasn't. The bottom of this header tank was actually leaking, and you can see it's been leaking for a little while. There's like oxidized water on there, so this has got a little bit of movement in it. I've just pulled that out. I should have probably left it out, but you just literally pull that pin and then wiggle that, and it actually comes out the bottom. Now this all looks in good condition, and it doesn't look bad at all. You can see where it's had the water leak's been coming out of there, but if you look in the bottom of this header tank, there's actually quite a nasty chin now out of the plastic, like somebody's been in there before, or it was a defect from new. I don't know, but the one thing I do know is when I asked Tyler for that pipe, he said, "Are you sure it ain't the header tank? They're quite common." And I said, "No, I don't think the header tank's leaking." Well, it turns out I should have actually listened, because the header tank is leaking. Now I could mess around with that, get some sealant on it. I don't know, I need to have a think about it, but I do need to get on the phone and see if he's got one. So to get that out, I had to remove just the airbox basically, and then you've got one pipe halfway up it, you've got a pipe right on the bottom, you can see just down there, and then of course you've got this big one at the top here you need to move out of the way, and it does just sit in the radiator of the fan cowl in there. So let's give Tyler a ring, see if he's heading this way, or I'll whip down there and get an header tank. Well, I took it out, I cleaned it up, and I tried to seal it up, but you can see around the bottom there it's clearly still leaking. So I've just spoken to Tyler, and he said he hasn't got one. They're quite common. The Motor Factors do a pattern one, and the dealer also stocks them because they're common, so I can buy one from the dealer as well. So I guess let's just whip it back out. It's only a couple of pipes, get the part number off it, ring up and get one ordered up. We know, don't we, once it's replaced, we know that it's been replaced. So let's get that done, and then I guess we can pick up once we get that, fingers crossed, get it on a vacuum. The Motor Factor's just arrived with a nice new one. Here is the old one. My only concern is it doesn't come with this new pipe section at the bottom, or the sensor. The sensor I don't think is an issue, that's fine, but it could possibly be this part that's leaking and not the actual tank. But what I did notice when I pushed that in there was these rubber seals inside here, these ones were sticking out a lot more, and it's a lot tighter grip getting that in there. So I am going to fit that, fill it back up with water, and let's have a look. Fingers crossed that solved the issue. Guys, I'm smiling. Full up to the brim, it's full of air as well. I've got to dump it all. Managed to get that hose back on. Got underneath with a tyre lever, put it underneath, just pushed it and it popped up. But, well, I don't even need to get under there, do I? You can see that is not leaking. So, actually, let's have a proper look, because we need to know, don't we? There is nothing leaking out of that now, so that was definitely a faulty coolant bottle. Right, I've got to undo this one here, Phillips, undo this one here, which is a Phillips, and actually just dump all of the water into it. You can see it started coming out already. Just dump this into this tray, and I think we're good to go. So again, up and down, just trying to sort that header tank out, and it is a case of up and down on the jack, because you've got the drain plugs underneath. We get them right, get them all done up, and we've got the kit out. I am going to say, if you haven't got one of these kits in your workshop, you really are missing out, because they are a very, very good bit of kit. Right, that is all put back together, and this is actually a fantastic piece of kit, and anyone working on cars, I would actually recommend that you do buy one. It's a definite must that you have that. Now you find the correct size cap, and that's on the header tank, and you can see they do give you this little hand pump with it, and I've just pumped it up to 10 psi, and you just leave it for a little while, make sure it's completely holding. That's the system all pumped up. You can feel the pressure in those pipes, and then obviously this has been left for quite a while. Then you can let your pressure out of that. We'll do that until it goes completely down. It may take a minute. That's probably low enough pressure now to actually just pull it off. There we go. And your pipe is now nice and soft. So now we're actually going to do the reverse, and we're going to set up the vac gauges here. We're going to connect the airline up, and we're actually going to draw all of the air out of the system, and then with the vacuum it's created, we're going to refill the system. So here we go. So you find the right size cap, I've said that before, we stick it on, we get it onto a vac. Now the can is just to catch any excess, so if there's a little bit of water or coolant left in the system, it will pull out in a vacuum, and instead of spraying it all over everywhere really, we sprayed it into that container, and a little bit did come out. So it took just a few seconds to get that into a vacuum, and as you can see, I've got it there in between the red and the yellow, and I've left it for about 10 minutes and it hasn't moved at all. That is telling us that we haven't got any issues or leaks, and also that's what I meant about it sucks the pipes inside out, completely draws all of the air out of the system, and you can probably see that hose there as well is exactly the same. So it is 1 part coolant, 2 parts water, 1/3. So I've got 2 empty bottles there. I've got the proper coolant for it. I've knocked it up with the water, so both of those are ready. I should expect it won't take both of them, but in a minute we're going to stick it in the bottle. We're going to refill this system, and just by this holding like this, it's given me some confidence that ultimately these 2 leaks were our issue, and we've definitely not got any kind of vacuum leaks or water leaks whatsoever now. So let's get it charged up, and still keeping our fingers crossed. See it drawing up. Got to keep that pipe in the bottom of this bottle. You don't want to draw in any air at all. So now that is done, we're putting this back together. So I'll remove the air box previously to actually make my life easy with the coolant bottle. So I've got that back on there. We're going to top up the radiator with a little tiny bit of water that it's short now that we've got it running. I've had to put a jump pack on there again to run it up, but this has got a good battery, so this should charge up no problem at all. I'm going to let it build up to temperature, and then we'll take a good look at it. That was actually the washers I topped up. Right, no leaks, water is bang on the maximum, we all sound good. I will sort that under bonnet tray out in a minute, the blanket, the sound deadening. But getting into the car, I'll have to put the tray plates in it, you can see the temperature is bang on the halfway mark, and the heaters I've got on halfway are coming out very, very hot. So we definitely got no air in the system, and that is perfect. I'm hoping that these lights go out when I go for a drive in it, because they wasn't on last time, was they? But I guess let's get the tray plates in it and get, well, I was going to say get it round the block, but I'm not going to be able to go around the block. I'm going to have to go a little bit further than around the block in order for that to creep up. I guess I'll just go for a drive, keep my eye on it, and if we have any issues, I'm just going to pull over and I'll show you what the issues are. Let's get on with it. Right, absolutely perfect. Temperature's on halfway, hasn't moved, and if you look at that mileage, those of you that are legal-eyed will already see I've just done 13.5 miles in this and put it through its paces. You can see how much fuel I've used since the last cutting and I showed you. And it is safe to say we have solved the problem. It's absolutely bang on, hasn't moved. As soon as I got back though, I have plugged it in, and wheel speed sensor front right needs doing, and then we've got body central electronics, wiper interlock, driver's mirror, but the battery on this car was completely flat again and I had to jump start it. So I'm going to clear the codes. It's definitely going to need a wheel speed sensor on the driver's side. We'll go and get one of those. Clear fault memory complete. Okay, and it's come straight back. No, it's gone. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll actually drive this car to the motor factors, and if it comes back on, I'm going to buy a wheel speed sensor for it. If it doesn't, I'm going to run this car for a minute, because it did have flat tyres as well. There's lots and lots to be getting on with, but most important, it isn't overheating anymore, and it's absolutely perfect. Right, let's get some more of the little jobs done on this car. So like I said, the warning light cleared down, and everything underneath here that I took off is all completely back together. I've double checked the coolant, now it's cooled down and we're back, and that's bang on. I've checked the oil and all of that is absolutely fine. I've even stuck, you can see, a couple of cable ties in that sound deadening pad. It is a bit worn out really, it does actually want a new one or some more cable ties in it because it is falling down, but that's held it up out the way for now. We need to get the tyres sorted out on this. Now that back one I know has got a slow puncher. It's definitely going to need one tyre, possibly two. So we're going to need to take it to A2 tyres. The ABS light's out. Let's drive it and see if that comes back on. And also I managed to glue that parking sensor back in by getting underneath and I managed to dab some glue on the little black pad behind it that had come undone. Held it in there and Chris sprayed some activator over the top of it for me, and that stayed in there as well. So I think we'll head to A2 tyres and we'll have all these tyres sorted out so they don't keep going flat, and replace what needs replacing. I'm showing you this report because this car has got the shadiest history I've ever seen on a car vertical report, and it was previously mentioned. So odometer needs attention and then damage detected. We're going to quickly go to the damage section, and we now know that this vehicle was previously sold at Copart and it is a category N non-structural damaged. Let's go to the odometer. This is very, very interesting. So odometer, we're going to click on more, and you can see straight away it's got rollback on it, but the mileage on this car is awful. So it's in 2009 now, on the 8th month, it's 79,000, which is believable. And then in 2010 it goes up to 86,000, which again is believable. And then of course in 2011 it dives back down to 70,000, and then up from there 77,000, 85, 92. But looking through the mileage history on this car, even in its early days, I just think some of it just doesn't ring true. You got 23,000 miles there on the 5th 2007. On the 7th 25,000. Let me find the one I see earlier where they was all very, very similar mileages throughout. So 96,000 now in 2016 on the 8th, and then on the 9th 17, so a year later the mileage has just gone less than 1,000, and then a year later again you can see it there, gone up under 1,000. So I do believe this car really has had a shady history, and of course you can see all of that when you run a report using Car Vertical. I want to thank Car Vertical for the continued support on the channel. To benefit from a nice little discount off your must-do check, use the code up on screen now or hit the link in the description where it will automatically apply your discount. So a little bit premature here in the car wash. Now it had all those like little brown leaves on the roof. It wasn't a tree sap or anything like that. It was just like really fine brown, and I believe this roof on this car at some point has been changed because it is in immaculate condition. And once he did clean all them little brambles off it, it really did look stunning. So we've got the car all cleaned. It's actually looking like we got away with this a bit lightly. The bead was leaking on that one. This one, the tyre was shot. So of course, got a nice brand new tyre on there. And these two, I haven't actually asked him about yet, but I can't see any black stuff on there. So maybe he hasn't done those two yet. But this car really did clean up quite nice. Let's have a look when we get back to the yard. Good is this though? While he's just doing the last wheel. They're brand new. They've not long been fitted, and of course brand new pads as well. They look quite rusty when we got this car, so that's a nice peace of mind. Last one and we're out of here. And of course that ABS light just kept coming back on. So it is the driver's side front. You can see on top of the bonnet I've got a new sensor. Quite expensive I think for an old car, but we got one anyway. There's one T35 in there. You've got to remove that and then keep spraying it up with WD and gently wiggling it, because you don't want it to snap while it's in there and you don't want to cause any more problems. Got it in there, got the code scanner plugged in, done a quick scan on it, cleared down that code, started the engine, and it has not come back on. I didn't want to record any more of this, but if you now reg check this car, it's the next day, I actually went off and took this for an MOT yesterday, and it actually passed the MOT, and the guy said it's actually very, very nice. It's got an advisory on the front drop links, have got slight play in them, and the rear brake hoses, where they join the brake hoses to the flexes, have got surface rust, so they was an advisory as well. But all of the tyres are all sealed up, and if you look at those brakes, I previously mentioned the rear ones, the front ones are actually brand new as well. So it has got all new discs and pads all the way around it, this car. And if you look now where that was actually squashed up, we put a block of wood on there, and Chris just tapped that down and got the line perfect now. And most importantly, as long as this car's open, the boot now opens and shuts very nice, because you had to slam it before, and that was just where that was. You can actually see just there, if I just pop that up, you can actually see just there, look, where it was rubbing, and every time the boot shut down it was hitting on that. So that's all sorted as well. That's all shut now. And that is it. The only thing is, don't ask me how I know this, but the fuel gauge on this car is wrong. And I broke down in this car. I run out of petrol in it, but the only problem with this car, I'm going to say, I've noticed now I've driven it a bit, and you can see I've driven it. Let's let the clutch up, and you give it a minute. Let's give it a little rev. I really want it to do it, and I don't think it's going to, but it has got a chattery dual mass flywheel. Every now and then, look how clean and tidy that come up where I had that cleaned previously. Every now and then you will hear that flywheel. Let's try and get it to do it, because I really need you to hear it. It's not going to do it, is it? Right, that's it. Let's go inside, crunch the numbers and tell you the plan with this car. Right, Chris is going to do the honours for me, but just before he does, someone's going to say, I didn't even see Chris in this video, but that's because Chris has been in here completely filming a separate video, and that will be coming out very, very soon. Someone may or may not have seen me somewhere in this video walking with a petrol can to a petrol station, but someone bibbed me and shouted out Selvage Rebuilds out the window.
Oh,
so
fair enough.
I definitely got caught.
Yeah.
Go on, mate.
Right, so we got purchase price, £580.
Yep.
And then, if you remember in the first video, we put plugs in it, didn't we?
Expensive plugs.
£70 for the plugs. We've got the hose, coolant pipe that kindly Tyler at Bridgend Recycling, our go-to BMW spares.
Which is place. In Ashford, not Bridgend.
That's right, that's right, yes. Then we've got the expansion bottle, coolant bottle, £30. New 5 litres of coolant, £24. ABS sensor, £28. New tyre and a puncture repair. I'm not sure which one you had one done, didn't you?
Yeah, one of them had a slow puncture, so they repaired that. We've had a new tyre put on it, and the other one was leaking around the bead, so they've resealed it.
So again, A2 tyres really look after us there, £80 for that. Then we got an MOT for £40.
Yeah.
Valet for £20, and the £18 worth of fuel you put in, which was £8 in a can, and then another tenner.
Can you believe you can even get £8 in a jerry can?
Yeah.
It's a joke, isn't it?
And that comes to £890.
Right.
That's what we've spent on that car.
Yeah.
Now, in the first video, we had a few people, I believe, found on that that website that you can find the previous auction.
I'll include that person's comment now.
Yeah, but I think there was more than one, but I think you pinned one of them, didn't you? So they found that car when it went through previously was $1,550
at Copart.
At Copart. So we thought it'd be quite funny, wouldn't it, to put an asking price on that. I mean, that's a cheap car.
Yeah.
But there is a reason you're going to...
I'm going to say, yeah.
We're going to ask the $1,550 that it made at auction.
We're going to ask the $1,550.
But it is now all fixed, running, driving, MOT,
literally,
cleaned up.
Yeah.
And that will give us a pre-tax profit of £660, which not a fortune.
It's not, but...
You've had a few hours here and there on it. And
it's not been loads of work.
It's... When you do the numbers at the end of the month, it all adds up to we're in front.
Of course it does.
It helps keep us in front, doesn't it?
It does. And a lot of people, believe it or not, they've got such a following, and that is quite rare being a 6-speed manual.
I think you'll have people fighting you for that at $1,550, I really do.
So do I. But I'm afraid it is the one time we're going to have to say this, and we are going to have to say it. That has got a really noisy dual mass flywheel sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
So I couldn't get it to do it earlier.
No, I know.
But if you start it up from cold in the morning, you'll hear it. As soon as you touch the clutch, it goes. So we're actually going to list that car
as a project.
As a project.
Yeah.
So spares or repairs.
Call it what you like.
We've got to cover ourselves, and that is what it will say on a receipt, because you can't guarantee that car needing a dual mass flywheel. But I think that'd still be a cheap car if you put a dual mass flywheel in it.
Oh yeah. And let's be honest, does it actually need one yet?
No.
I mean, it could let you down, I guess, but you know, we couldn't.
Don't get me wrong, it's got a bit of a checkered past. It is 20 years old.
And that is the other thing, isn't it?
But
so
it is a cheap car. I'm not going to keep justifying it and telling you it is 100% cheap. What I'll do is I'll chuck it on Instagram in 48 hours' time. Please don't email me before saying, Rob, I'll take it, because we just don't work like that. You have to wait till I put it on Instagram. Then, of course, you can hit that email, sales, siuk@gmail.com, and put your phone number on there, and I'll call you straight back in the order that they come in until it's sold. If you don't hear from me, unfortunately, it's already gone. that is the end of today's video and the end of the little series on the E46 convertible. If you did enjoy it, as usual, we'd appreciate that thumbs up. It's completely free of charge and it really does help us out. Don't forget, if you want to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of them, the links are in the description down below. And don't forget, of course, to like, subscribe and share for more. We'll see you very, very soon in the next one.